Before we begin, we are a small channel on the path to 1,000 subscribers. If this kind of content interests you, subscribe now. It takes 1 second and makes a real difference. Now let's go. Close your eyes. You stand before a gate that no one has looked at quite like this in over 500 years. Not with the knowledge you are about to have. The castle lies in the Loire Valley, in the autumn of 1440. France, a country that has just survived the 100 Years' War, that still smells of blood and ash, that carries the exhaustion of survivors in every face. And in this landscape, between vineyards and church bells, between farmsteads and pilgrimage roads, one of the most powerful men in the kingdom resides in one of his castles. Tiffauges, Machecoul, Champtissé, stone upon stone, tower upon tower, walls 2 meters thick that let neither the warmth inside escape outward, nor what happens within. Forget what you imagined. The villain of the Middle Ages was not a shadow at the edge of society. He was its center. This man, let us call him what his contemporaries called him, the Marshal, was a Marshal of France. He stood side by side with Jeanne d'Arc. He owned a fortune that made kings pale. He was devout, or at least considered devout. He financed cathedrals, maintained church choirs, dressed priests in silk. What do you see when you close your eyes and hear his name? What do you smell? Sulfur, perhaps, as we have been taught to smell evil, or incense. And what do you hear? The cry of the damned, or the prayer of a man who believes in his own election. Today, we go in. Authority transition. Before we go further, let me show you how we know this. The foundation of this story is the trial record of 1440, documented by ecclesiastical and secular courts in Nantes. Historians such as Jean-Benedetti and Jean-Benedetti analyzed these documents, witness testimonies, confessions, inventory lists, letters. The medievalist Matei Cazacu reconstructed the chronology of the crimes with a disturbing precision in his research. These sources are imperfect, as all medieval documents are, but they exist, and what they describe is harder to bear than any legend. Now we return. The Rais, a man to whom everything belongs. It is early morning, sometime between 1420 and 1430. The air is cold, damp, as it always is in the Loire, a cold that seeps into the bones, that cuts through wool and fur. You stand in the courtyard of a castle. The stones beneath your feet are uneven, slick with overnight frost. Around you, the household stirs to life. The marshal rides out this morning. His horse is an animal worth 30 gold coins, his cloak embroidered with ermine. Behind him follows a retinue of 200 men. 200. For a private citizen, he is at this point roughly 25 years old. He has already inherited estates in Brittany, in Anjou, in Maine. He has married a wealthy heiress, Catherine de Thouars. He has fought in battles, distinguished himself, received the title of Marshal, the highest military honor in France, bestowed by King Charles VII himself. Imagine you are a peasant at the edge of that road. You watch him pass. You remove your hat. You lower your gaze. You do not know, you cannot know, that the children from your village have been disappearing lately. The first disappearances begin gradually. A boy sent to market who never returned. A daughter picking berries at the forest's edge. Rumors that form quietly and fall silent even more quietly, because one does not speak loudly about the Marshal, because he is the Marshal. When we later read that he fought alongside Jeanne d'Arc, that he accompanied her at the entry into Reims, that he wept when she was captured, that was not the mask of evil. It was part of the same man who wept, the same man who went to the chapel in the evenings. The simultaneity is the most unbearable part. The interior. What happens behind the walls? Step inside the tower now. The staircase is narrow, shoulder width, no more. The stones are cold beneath the palm of your hand as you brace yourself against them. It smells of moisture, of the moss growing between the joints, of burnt wood from a fireplace that never suffices to warm this room, and of something else, something you would rather not name. The chamber at the end of this staircase is his private retreat. No court, no household staff, no witnesses, or almost none. From the trial records, we know that there were accomplices. Names history has retained. Henriette Griard, Poitou. Men from the Marshal's inner circle, men who obeyed. The testimonies of these men, given under the pressure of the court, describe the interior of this chamber with a matter-of-factness that settles in the stomach. Look closely, not at the spectacle. There is none here. Look at the ordinary, the wooden table, the candlestick, the books. He owned many books, magnificently illuminated, including alchemical treatises and conjuration formulas, a mirror, a crucifix. The victims were children, primarily boys. Historians speak of at least 40 confirmed victims. Some estimate the number above 100, some approaching 200. The darkness of this chamber is not the darkness of a monster from another world. It is the darkness that forms when absolute power and absolute impunity meet a particular character. And that is the terrifying part. He was not stopped for years. Parents filed complaints. Villages whispered. The rumors reached bishops and nobles. And nothing happened, as long as his name still carried weight, as long as his castle walls were thick enough. When we say today that power shields from consequences, that is not a modern observation. That is an observation from 1435. The decline, when the fortune ends. It is midday now. The sun stands high, but it does not warm. The Marshal has grown older, mid-30s, and he is ruined. Not morally ruined. That comes later in the public conscience. Financially ruined. He has spent his fortune like water, on theatrical productions, on his vast household, on alchemical experiments, on mercenaries he hired and never paid, on feasts that lasted 3 days and could have fed an entire town. And now he is selling castles, one after another. His relatives sue him. They want to prevent the inheritance from vanishing. King Charles VII intervenes personally to halt the liquidation. Imagine the Marshal at this midday. He sits in a hall that was once full and is now half empty. The curtains have been taken down. The silverware is gone, sold. The 200 men of his retinue have dwindled to 20. He has not yet been arrested, but he is beginning to feel it, the pull of the ground beneath him giving way. During this time, he turns to conjuration. He summons Florentine sorcerers, men who claim to speak with demons. He seeks gold, the gold that alchemy promises. He seeks power, the power that pacts with the devil are supposed to grant. When we know that at the end of his life he prayed in a chapel, wept openly, beat his chest, that was not the hypocrisy of a cold manipulator. It was the desperation of a man who genuinely believed, who believed he could sin and find forgiveness, who believed that God and the devil were both within his reach. That is harder to understand than a monster, and therefore more important. The end. The mechanism awakens. It is evening, September 1440. The bells of Saint-Étienne-de-Mer-Morte are ringing, but not for a service. The Marshal has made a mistake, a single, concrete, legally actionable mistake. He has threatened and seized a priest, a cleric under the protection of the Bishop of Nantes. That is the thread from which the entire cloth begins to unravel. The Bishop of Nantes and the Duke of Brittany, John V, have had enough. Not necessarily because of the children. The children had been disappearing long before anyone needed the Marshal. Now a reason is needed, and the priest is reason enough. He is arrested. He is brought to Nantes. And in the courtroom, a room where you now sit, on a hard wooden bench, among monks and officials and witnesses whose hands are trembling, the proceedings begin. The witnesses come forward, parents who describe what has vanished, children who returned, servants who nodded in silence and then finally spoke. The testimonies pile up, and the Marshal, who was once the Marshal, sits in his chair and initially holds the posture of a man who holds contempt for the proceedings, and then he breaks. Suddenly, publicly, he weeps. He confesses, not under torture, as his later defense sometimes claims, but in the silence of a moment when he understands that the ground is gone for good. When we say his confession was coerced, we must also say the teachings of the Church promised him forgiveness if he confessed. That was not an empty promise in his world. That was theology. That was what he believed. Step back. Look at everything we have seen. A man of 30 years of glory and 10 years of abyss. A hall that was full and then empty. A chamber behind a narrow staircase where the most terrible things happened in complete silence. Witnesses who kept quiet for years because silence was the only thing that felt safe. What this story shows us is not a medieval curiosity. It is a structure, the structure in which power generates impunity, in which wealth builds walls, not only of stone, but of silence, in which belief and cruelty do not exclude one another, but can exist simultaneously within the same body. Gilles de Rais did not win the title of the cruelest villain of the Middle Ages because he was a monster from another world. He won it because he was from this world, fully, deeply embedded in its hierarchy, its piety, its violence. He was a product of his time, and his time looked away for as long as it was worth looking away. On 26th October 1440, he was hanged and burned. The chronicles report that women from Nantes prayed for his soul as he died. That is the Middle Ages. Not black and white, not simply evil, but gray in all its shades, dissolving into smoke and still looking back at us. If this video showed you that history runs deeper than what textbooks tell us, that the darkness of the past has a structure we must learn to recognize, then help us reach more people. We are a small channel on the path to 1,000 subscribers, and every subscription counts. Click subscribe now. It takes only a second. And before you go, leave a comment. What surprised you most? The coexistence of faith and atrocity? The years of impunity? Or the moment he broke in the courtroom? Write it in the comments. It takes only 15 seconds and helps this video reach more people. Thank you for staying until the end. Until next time.